recording audio now. I'll give you the claps.
Yay.
Well,
He always teases me because I clap.
Yeah, when we're sitting here, sometimes we'll record podcasts just like on my little digital audio recorder, and she'll always clap, and I'm like, I don't have anything to sync, so I don't need it to.
it's the principle. It's the principle.
Yeah, I just clap because I'm happy.
It's a good habit to get into.
I mean, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Yeah.
Right?
So it's better to clap too much than not enough.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you before we get started just for coming on. Starting a new venture and working with people that I worked with on the old podcast. It's been a real boon because there's nothing worse than just like sort of starting from scratch with nothing. So first and foremost, thank you for coming on. I have a ton of things to talk to you about. I'm sure Rachel has some things she'll want to talk to you about as well.
I'm just here for, emotional support at a feminine voice.
My body's ready.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I just want to say, when did you start being on everything on the internet? Because like I look up any actual play, like your face is everywhere.
My infestation is spreading. Yes. No, this was all part of the plan. I like without exaggeration. I had a very specific plan, and quite frankly, I did it. It was once I got my foot in the door. Let me take a step back. Damien Poitier was one of the actually, Jason Charles Miller was the first person I met in Los Angeles. He takes umbrage with this because technically I met him in Arkansas before I came to LA. So JCM's first Angelino I met. I met Damien Poitier very early in my time here in LA on the set of a movie, and we became friends. And then I introduced the two of them. And when Geek and Sundry was first starting to take off, Jason invited Damien to come be on Foreververse on Geek and Sundry, which, not gonna lie, at the time I was a little salty about because I was like, you guys wouldn't even know each other if not for me, but whatever, whatever, cool, yeah, whatever. And Foreververse shot during the day, and back in those days I was still working a day job, and Damien called me one day just at random, and he's like, I have an idea for a show called Ask Your Black Geek Friend. And I was like, stop right there, I'm in. He called me on a Wednesday. We shot the pilot on Saturday. They told us they wanted the show on Monday. That was in March. We didn't actually go up until August. But I knew once I got my foot in the door, I was going to make sure that my reputation was always on time. I was always easy to work with, and I always did my best. And I knew if I did those three things, everything else would take care of itself. And it did. And just have tried to help as much as I could, signal boost as much as I could, volunteer things, and make friends as much as I could, and hook people up. And it just came back around. And I say I've been fortunate to roll some very opportune crits for opportunities. Due to my extreme hard work, I was able to roll with advantage on some of those rolls, but I was able to roll some timely crits. And and here we are.
So could you give us a quick rundown, I guess give our listeners a quick rundown of what are you actually like involved in right now? What like live streams, because there's a couple of things specifically I'm going to want to ask you about, and I don't know if you're going to give me any answers, but just like what are you involved in right now?
Well, for my Patreon, I run about 10 to 12 games a week. So Monday, mostly Patreon. Tuesday, Silver and Steel. On D&D Beyond. We just wrapped Outbreak Undead on Hunters Entertainment. I wrapped my run on that. The show's going to go on for Outbreak Undead. Just finished that. Unannounced show coming on Mondays. Thursday is Ascension on Roll For It, which is a D&D actual play. Thursday nights, Dungeons & Dragons: A Dark Wish, although we're shooting the season finale of that this Thursday. Friday currently is Rage Across New York, my Werewolf stream. Although we did Vampire, now we're doing Werewolf. I will let you logically extract what comes next. Saturday is mostly charity games or Patreon games. Sundays in the mornings, I've kind of wrapped on one-on-one shots because I did everybody that I wanted to talk to, but a lot of people have asked me for more, so that's probably going to come back at some point soon. Sunday nights is Aegon, which is the heroic action adventure story on Bard and Barbarian. Then I'm working on Werewolf 5th edition, working on 2 unannounced things, crowdfunding for my own documentary, still working on getting Electropunk out into the world. I think that's it.
It sounds, I mean, honestly, I don't think you're taking full advantage of your time.
You know the funny thing, I really feel like I don't. Like, I know, like, it sounds like I just said like I do a lot, and I'm just like, I'm so inefficient.
No, I think
like
you
it's
and
bothersome.
you and me suffer from the same illness, and that we, like, if I have a list of 10 things and I can accomplish 6 of those things, like, really that's a win. But in my mind, I'm like, why didn't I make a list of 12 things? Yeah, so
Should have been made a list of 12 things.
that's
Yeah,
right.
shouldn't have.
Absolutely.
That's the 11th thing on the list is a longer list.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
But it's yeah, no, but I'm fortunate, and then a bunch of like charity and random and one-off stuff. Like, I mean, I'm shooting a Call of Cthulhu game for PAX tomorrow night. Jasper's Game Days this weekend, as of the time of this recording. Yeah, just, dopeness, and I squeeze it in whenever I can, just like this, to talk to you fine people today. I was like, I have a very narrow window that is exactly right here. But yeah, that's but it's fun because the way I look at it is, I know you said you're starting something new, you guys are starting small, but the way I look at it, it's all the same to me. If somebody wants to take their time to talk to me, I will take the time to talk to them. So, because you could be doing anything and you're choosing to talk to me, so I'm the lucky one here.
Well, I appreciate it. Obviously, one of the things I want to know the most about, which again, I'm sure you can't talk too much about it, is Werewolf 5th edition. When I heard that you were on it, I was very, very happy. Having, had the experience to conversate with you, to chat with you, to have you on the old podcast, I really started to rally behind you, as a person. You talk to somebody and you go, that's a person that I appreciate. So I'm sure you can't tell me. No, you're welcome. I'm sure you can't tell me about anything that's going into Werewolf. But how did you get put into Werewolf? How did that happen?
Honestly, it's that thing that I was just telling you about. It was the relationships. I had established myself as a solid dude that knew a lot about it. Werewolf was my first love. I played Werewolf before I played Vampire, because in those days is like 96, 97. I mean, being all like cursed and filled with ennui is all well and good, but turning into a 12-foot rage monster that can throw a pickup truck is better. So, Werewolf was what I was into, and we sit around and we talk about this stuff like a lot. Like, Jason and I, in fact, one of the happiest memories of my geek life was right after we shot the Chair D20 vampire stream in 2017 around Christmas time, which was the first time I'd played on camera. It was also the first time I met Jason Carl. About a week later, we went out to dinner and we were talking about the tribes. What would have happened to the tribes in the 15 years since the last book, and just the mental game, I suppose, the mental challenge of just trying to deduce. You're like, well, what would have happened, and just trying to like talk it out with each individual tribe was so interesting, because I was like, man, I'm talking to a dude that actually is going to have like a hand in it. This is dope. And so by the time it had come in, I'd done some work with Outbreak Undead. I'd written for Outbreak Undead by then. I mean, I knew Ivan very well because we played a bunch. We did We're Alive and some other stuff together. And so it just lined up that as they were assembling their team, they knew I was a dude who could write, that knew about the world and the lore, and more importantly, cared about the lore and the world and the lore. Everybody on the project actually cares. Like, there's nobody that is just a hired gun. Every single person has been playing Werewolf and like really truly gives a damn about it. And I think it shows.
It's something that I'm very much looking forward to. Everybody's been very tight-lipped about it, but I'm really hoping that it does great service to the original, but also the video games. Like, all the imagery that's been coming out just looks insane.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about the whole thing. And so do you know, like, I guess, how do I ask this? Do you know like what specifically your role is going to be in that? Are you sort of just a freelance writer, or like how?
Oh no, I know exactly. Yeah, no. Yes, you see like laser beams from Paradox Interactive appear right. on my forehead there. You know,
everybody I've asked has been very tight-lipped about it. So
yeah. No, it's it'll be dope. When Werewolf 5th edition is in your hands, it will be something beautiful and special. That's what I can say.
I was excited to talk to you because I really like to meet people who have interesting career backgrounds and just chat with them. And you know, like you have done so many different things, whether, you're being on your radio show, all the stuff you're doing recently on the internet, who people mostly know you for now, your writing career. So you're kind of like a Renaissance man. And so it's interesting to hear a perspective from someone who's had a lot of different types of jobs. And honestly, someone who's maybe not doing something necessarily that I want to be doing, but something in that vein, something similar where you're able to kind of pay the bills with the creative process and kind of be your own boss. I think that's really cool and really interesting. So that's why I was excited to jump on and talk to you. When Nate was like, "Oh, I was like, who are you doing the podcast with tonight?" And he's like, "B. Dave Walters." And I'm like, "I mean, I'm gonna be around, so maybe I can sit in and just listen to you guys talk." I don't have anything really valuable to bring to the conversation other than just fangirling a little bit. So.
Well, first of all, just your very presence is bringing something to the conversation, and I look forward to disappointing you heartily. There is one thing, I wrote the reboot of a very well-known and beloved horror franchise that the fact that it is being rebooted has not even been announced yet. So when the announcement is announced, then I'll be able to say that I'm the one that wrote it. But yeah, that's a thing. That also happened.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna have to, poke you on Twitter or something at some point and be like, "Hey, tell me more." I know you can't, but
keep an eye out for a beloved horror franchise being rebooted in the near future.
So is it? I was just gonna say, is it a movie or a show, or can you give us that, or is it a comic book?
The look on his face.
Keep an eye out for a beloved horror franchise being rebooted.
I've got nothing to tell you.
In the very near future.
Well, okay, so October is not too far away. I'm gonna keep my eyes out. Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I mean, obviously the pandemic has changed everything.
Yeah.
But I would think probably by October-ish something should be said.
Cool.
Because if not for the pandemic, it would have been filming already. So yeah, I think that's reasonable.
It's definitely not a radio play.
Everybody is going to be announcing all their spooky stuff in October. You know what I mean? So like that in and of itself is not like, ooh, yeah. So yeah, probably soon. I think probably around then. It's probably a safe bet.
Well, so tell me about something I hope you can tell me about, and that's the documentary that you're trying to make, because that's something that seems very, very important to me. That not everything's fun and games, especially not right now, and so I felt like that would be something we could really dive into.
The documentary is called Dear America from a Black Guy. It is pinned at the top of my Twitter right now, where you can see it. As of the time of this recording, we have 14 days left in the raising funds for it. And it is basically just my attempt at building a bridge of communication in this country, because tribalism has taken hold very deeply. Very, very deep gulf has appeared. That I see in myself also. I realized this was a project I've wanted to do for a while, and the reason why I hadn't is I was like, I kind of don't want to, like I kind of don't want to talk to those people. Like, I'm from Arkansas, I know them, I was like, nah, I'm good. But I realized just it's literally costing people lives now. Like, people are dead now because it was more important to get over on the other side than just treat people like human beings. And so my goal is to just can we just start with a baseline? Like, you're a person, I'm a person. Cool. You want to be safe and have a roof over your head. I want to be safe and have a roof over my head. You want your kids to be safe and have a better life than you had. I want my kids to be safe and have a better life than I had. Cool. Let's just kind of put the things on the table that we're all on the same page about, because I mean, we're all humans first and Americans second. And whatever happens in November next year, there's going to be literally millions of pissed off people. And we got to find a way to kind of start laying some planks over that divide. And I have no illusions about all of us agreeing suddenly, because it's never been true and it's not gonna. And quite frankly, all positions and worldviews are not equal, but we still cannot get anywhere unless we're even able to just have a conversation from a place of even the most baseline of respect. In racism and misogyny are having a bumper crop, man. Like, it's a lot of it's out in the open. And I thought the 2016 election, I really did. I thought this was like the last dying gasp of everything that is wrong with this country. And we're going to beat it. We're going to defeat it here, and it'll be good for all time. Narrator voice was not. That was the Two Towers. That was Helm's Deep. We were driven back, and now here's Minas Tirith. Here we are. The final battle for our time is here, and whatever happens afterwards, we just got to be able to talk to each other. We just have to, and that's the core of the documentary. And it's true that it's something that people on my side of the equation knew was going to happen. Is you saw this huge spike in support for Black Lives Matters and ending police brutality and systemic racism, and that support is coming down, and we all knew it would, because this activism exhaustion kicks in, where it's like people are tired and overwhelmed, they just want to hear about it anymore. And I'm like, no, I get it, because it's like super heavy, and you don't want to have to hear about it and think about it, except we live it. Like, we don't get to hit pause on it. Like, we don't get to opt out of it. And playing games and writing movies and telling stories are things I love, and they're passionate hobbies and all, but this is my real life every single day, and it's the real life of a lot of people that look like me every single day, and those struggles are ongoing. And I think it's very easy to become dismissive of the struggles that other people go through when they're not your struggles. And I sympathize with this, because I said, I've said many times, I was on the wrong side of Me Too. Not in the sense that I believe I was behaving in a way that was sexist, but I did not understand the systemic and insidious nature of things women are all exposed to. Like, I knew every woman I know had been hit on, and maybe had been made to feel skeeved at times, but it's just horrible story after horrible story came out, and they all had them. And I was like, y'all, I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know, but now I do. And as such, I adjust my behavior. I adjust what I'm looking for. I adjust what I'm looking for in situations, and trying to do better, which is all a person can really ask. Is like, if you were making a mistake, if you didn't realize something, realize you were making that mistake, try and do better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are now, or at least what I'm trying to accomplish out of this.
Yeah, it's very crazy to me, the complete lack of compassion that is very easy to find in a lot of people these days. Yeah.
It's wild. Yes. You were about to say something there, ma'am.
I was just going to say, when I found out, I think I saw on Twitter the first time that you were announcing you were doing this project, and I was really excited to see someone from a community that I identify with, being the nerd gamer community, saying no, I want to do this, because not only is it important to continue to keep the conversation alive with people who are getting, protest fatigue and white people, things like that. White people, I see you. But I think it's good to have a diversity of voices within the Black community, because there are so many people who are so different, with so many different interests, that I think a voice like yours obviously is going to have a different kind of reach than LeBron James, or someone who's out on the street protesting tonight, right? So I think having a diversity of voices within the movement is going to be awesome, and a good way to reach our community of gamers, that and that will trickle across to other interests, right? Because nerds are taking over the world, And that's
Yep.
awesome. So anyway, I thought it was really cool. I was glad to see you do it. I mean, the stuff Kamau W. Bell's doing on CNN is awesome, but that is a corporate media funded project. It's great to see an independent documentary by someone who is knowledgeable, who cares, that has a voice that can reach out to people. So we support you. It's awesome. I'm so glad that you're doing this. So you said you had 13 days left on the Indiegogo as of today. Is that correct?
Today's 14. It's
14,
like
okay.
two wins. What are we? It's the 9th, September 9th.
Okay,
is
cool.
the last day.
And I checked out the sorry, go ahead.
No, please. What were you saying?
Well, I was just going to say I checked out the page earlier today, and even if you don't hit your goal, there's still some cool stuff that you're planning on doing with the money you do raise. So that's badass.
Oh yeah, no, we've already raised enough. Like the project's going to happen. Like
Awesome.
it's like I'm going to do it at this point. It's just a matter of what's it going to be? What's the finished product going to look like? What scale will it be at? Which is nice. It's the difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter, for those of you that don't know, because I did fund Electropunk via Kickstarter, but I'm doing this via Indiegogo, is Kickstarter is all or nothing, but it is also for your protection. That if you need $40,000 to make your widgets and you only raise $20,000, well, you got two problems. One, you cannot create your widgets, and two, the people that gave you $20,000 are expecting widgets. That's why it's all or nothing. With Indiegogo, you have the option of doing it flexible for things like this, creative projects where it's like maybe a musician. It's like, hey, if I raised 20 grand, I'm going to do an album, but if I raise 10, I'll do an EP, like that kind of thing. That's the difference between the two platforms. So at this point, it is more just like a question of the scale that it is going to be at. And then I'm positioned pretty well here going into the end, that just this week I gained some fairly significant resources in terms of trying to like raise some word of mouth there going into the end. So, we'll see. I'll hit it as hard as I can and leave it all on the field. And you're right that I think one of the things that is important to get across to people is, Black people are not a monolith. We never were. There's definitely some things that we all have in common. That is true. But, different people see things different ways.
Right.
And that was the thing that pushed me over the line to want to do this project was, I guess a month or two ago now, in England, when the far right protester got his head cracked and the Black Lives Matter protester carried him to the medic. And I posted about that, and I didn't say anything about it. Just here's the picture, and this is what this is. And this huge argument broke out, and just so many Black people in the comments were mad. Like, you should not have helped him. And I was like, get why y'all are upset, but I'm like, leaving that man to just bleed and die wouldn't have accomplished anything. I mean, like, he was still a person. Like, I mean, he might be a terrible person, but I mean, he's still a person, and he wasn't going to learn anything from that. And hey, he may not have learned anything from the fact that he got rescued, but the world saw that someone learned something. And even if no one learned something, it was the right thing to do. It was a helpless human being. And when I was like, we have gone so far that we are so angry at the concept of a life being saved. I'm like, we're off track, y'all. We're off track. And I get why you're mad. And I mean, he might have deserved getting his head cracked. I don't know what happened in the moments leading up to that. Whatever brick he got hit with, he may have had coming. He really might have. But that doesn't mean taking him to get patched up was wrong. Right. And it's just that's what I mean about just the baseline humanity, even just the concept of Black Lives Matter, the fact that needs to be said out loud. And yet we still get this, well, nuh-uh response. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I will say all things being equal, even though, I mean, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat going into November, like I think everyone is, I do feel better about the overall future and trajectory of the country than I did at the beginning of May. I do. So we'll see. Just trying to do my part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of unavoidable terrible situations, and I use unavoidable in air quotes. How has COVID impacted your ability to produce? How has that changed for you, the dynamic of what you do on a daily basis?
I try to be careful talking about this because it is a difficult time for everyone. It is a catastrophic time for some people. But for me, I got to tell you, really has been relatively painless. I have my studio here. I mean, honestly, I've gotten interviews with people and participated in games that would not have happened in the before times because we were all too scattered all over the place. The fact that we're doing this right now, for media creation, this has been a booming time for me. I've been busier than ever and more doors have opened than ever. I look at the documentary now that if I had my way, I'd have loaded up an RV and just driven across the country talking to people. Like that's not really in the cards. But stuff like that is not a thing. But in terms of like the games and streaming and podcasting, it's been great because people have been home and they've needed something to do to occupy their minds, to feel like they could belong somewhere, be a part of something. My Patreon community is grown by leaps and bounds. It's just but I also take very seriously that what I'm doing is providing an outlet to help people kind of maintain their sanity and limit their sense of isolation.
Absolutely.
And that's the place I'm operating out of. So,
I think it's a real service. I mean, honestly, like everything you do, all the content creators, like not just you, obviously, but there's a lot of podcasts I listen to, YouTube videos I'm watching, because even if they're not, explicitly giving a message of hope, it is nice to see like, oh no, like there are still sane people out there like me that care about other people, that care about things, that aren't just angry all the time. Or I can, watch people play a role-playing game. Or another one of my favorite comedians, Ron Funches, he has a great podcast and it's so positive, and he has like other comedians on his guest, and the message is positivity. And it's like, the world is on fire. It's nice to have these little snippets and nuggets and reminders that we're all still out here. We're all still okay. And we're here for each other. And I think like Matthew Dawkins was on Nate's podcast a few weeks ago, and we were kind of chatting, and it was a rough couple of days with COVID and things like that. And, I think I made a statement that I was like, I feel like there's a mass cultural extinction. Like there are things that are dropping off and going away that are either going to be gone forever or that are going to come back slowly. And I'm thinking like things like live comedy, live music, stuff like that. And I'm like, but, in this sort of mass extinction, whenever, in biology, in the real world, when this happens, there's always something underneath that's able to survive and flourish and grow and get bigger, and maybe not replace what was there before, but become its own unique, awesome thing, like people and dinosaurs, like it's, I feel like I've beat the analogy to death, but I feel like what we're seeing come out of this is a way that we are building and maintaining community in lieu of being able to have that physical contact of conferences and conventions and live theater, all that stuff. Eventually, something's going to have to happen. Something's going to have to break where people can get together again and do things on film. But yeah, I think it's awesome. And the fact that you're willing and able to commit so much time to be one of those conduits to kind of help people stay sane is awesome. So it's appreciated, I'm sure. Not just
thank you.
Of people.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, no, we're seeing natural selection in action, and we are seeing an increasing clarity of what we can and can't do without.
Right.
And it is not going to just instantly snap back. Like a lot of these things that are gone forever. Like workplace culture is going to change forever. Because even if the virus went away tomorrow, they're gonna be like, "Hey, everybody, come back!" And it's like, "Well, wait a second. We established we don't have to be there to get this done."
Right. No, yeah, totally. Yeah. You bring that up, but it's true because like, I have a traditional 9-to-5 job, but I'm a medical writer and I can do that job from home without having to interface with people all the time. But what that's given me is 2 extra hours of my day that I can dedicate
Yep.
to my fiction, to my passions,
Yep.
to maybe turn those hobbies someday. They're not hobbies, they're things I do on the side that aren't very important to me, but that someday maybe I can, be able to use those as my way to pay the bills. And without those 2 extra hours a day that I would normally spend in the car, it would be impossible. So it's like, it sucks. I wish I could go out and do things. I miss my coworkers and seeing people every day face to face, but this extra 2 hours in my life is huge each day. So
I've said that to people. It's like, man, I realize it's tough. But we will miss the simplicity of this time
Right.
when it's back into rush hour and getting up and having to leave so much earlier to sit in a meeting that you do not want to be in, and remembering that you used to be in your pajama pants with your dog in your lap. Like we will miss this.
Yeah.
We will miss parts of this, and even the cons and things, even when the cons come back, like next year, probably, they're going to be at like half capacity, because even when they open up, a lot of people just aren't going to go. Like,
Right.
I mean, we're 2 to 3 years away from it being like it was. We're 2 to 3 years away from after verifiable treatments, not like,
Right.
Yeah.
weird, like, hey, plasma weirdness. Like, no, this is not going to kill you anymore. Like, we're a ways out from that. And again, I think we're starting to see what matters, and what we really miss was things like each other, just the value of being able to sit down and talk, even if it is via Zoom, in a lot of the former institutions that are falling away. But I will tell you what is going to come out of this, though, is a lot of quarantine babies, both literally and figuratively, of, people that that finished that novel, wrote that screenplay, wrote that album, that again, in the next 2-ish 3-ish months, some really brilliant stuff is going to come out. Like Shakespeare wrote a bunch of his plays during a quarantine. Sir Isaac Newton came up with algebra during a quarantine. So who knows what the world is about to be blessed with after this.
Well, and just from my own example too, I was never recording video. I did podcasts, and all of my podcasts were basically face to face. We do a couple of, Zencaster meetups. That's how we recorded with you originally. But it was this necessity to go, I can't meet with people. Like, I can have a podcast with Rachel, or I can just talk to myself into a camera. And I was like, well, why don't we figure it out? It's that level of, I don't have to go and make a big ordeal out of it. I can sit here and I can work out all these kinks, and I can have a face-to-face conversation with you, and I can see you, and then I can produce this and put it out for people, and they can enjoy it the same way. And, like you said, the quarantine babies, where now we kind of have the time to dwell on the little things we always gave excuses why we couldn't. And
yeah,
I'm not trying to say like, yay, coronavirus, but there is definitely an upside to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everyone that is not being disingenuous right now in the conversation can comprehend the difference. And again, I get that is, if it had been 6 months earlier, me, catastrophic, it would have been just an awful time that would have been difficult every single second of the day. It just so happens, because I'd hit a very low point in the late last year where the tide kind of all went out at once, and then the pendulum swung, and because all the shows, everything kind of went on hiatus all at once, and everybody's like, we're going to do this early next year all at once, and it all just sort of bottomed out. And then it all kicked in. So when the word went out, like, hey, go out and buy 2 weeks worth of groceries, I mean, I could. And there's been plenty of times in my life that I wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of able to tuck in and like, all right, and had my stuff, and not soon after kind of invested in the new equipment, invested in the new mic, new camera, new setup to still be able to do the professional grade stuff. And, as I produce higher quality content, I started getting higher quality opportunities, which is weird, but I'm going on a different soapbox now. I'm talking to you about this book and making your writing your thing you do, speaking as someone that is a professional writer and makes money doing the writing, which is incredibly difficult to do. So
it is very difficult to do.
It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
What's wild? Writing as a creative outlet is the lowest barrier of entry of all of them. It's really hard to get a movie made. It's much harder to get TV made. Web series and things, it becomes more negotiable, but a novel is 100% your mind, and it has the budget that you set for it, and there's nothing stopping you from writing it but you.
Right.
And there is enough distribution outlets for it now. The speech I always give is, in the past, maybe on the short end, 5 years ago, 10 years ago to definitely 20 years ago, there was 150 people that controlled all of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
That if you didn't get the rub from that director or that casting agent or that music producer, like, it was not going to happen for you. It just wasn't. That's not true anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The internet has democratized all of that. Challenge is now being heard above the noise.
Right. Yeah.
So, my first book I self-published, Electropunk, we crowdfunded. How long have you been working on your novel?
Oh, geez, probably 3 years, but that's with working full time and doing other things and trying to get into the habit and establish a good writing habit and things like that. But I've always wanted to write fiction, and I have a lot of reasons and excuses why I didn't develop that skill further early in life. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I don't care if I get paid for it. I don't care if anyone ever reads it. But this is, it was like, I saw myself as a writer. And whether I was a good writer or bad writer, it didn't matter. That's what I had to do. And so I was like, every day that I wasn't doing it, it bugged me. It gnawed at me. And so, I got to the place where I was doing it just a little bit every day, and then the words started to come easier. I could see the picture more clearly. And Stephen King has this analogy in his On Writing book where he talks about like brushing off the dust of the fossil. And every time I would do it, I could see the fossil more and more and more. I could brush off and see the story more and more. So I've been writing this book for about 3 years. I have a couple of short stories that I'm trying to work on and refine. And, my goal is by the time I'm 40, just to have one thing published. I don't care if it's a short story. I don't care if it's a book. Just one thing. So that's kind of the goal, and I'm trying to tick away at it as much as I can, but recognizing that, I don't have a black belt as a writer yet. Like, I don't have enough experience. I haven't earned my 1,000 hours. So, but I'm not doing this for anyone else but me. So hopefully it'll turn in. I mean, the lights are on. We're paying the bills. I don't think I'm going to be able to quit my day job anytime soon, but it would be a dream if I could make a living doing creative things. That would be great.
Well, the good news is you don't have to quit your job to do it. At least not until you're ready. How many words do you think you're at on the book?
Right now, I have 82,000, a little bit over 82,000.
What are you aiming for?
At least 80. So my first draft, it was 86, and I'm working into the second draft now. I've cut it down to 82. I think I'm probably gonna end up somewhere between 81 and 83 by the time I'm done. And I'd say like,
so it's done. You're refining.
Yeah, it's done. I'm refining. I do have a friend who's looking at it pretty closely with me side by side because I have dyslexia. And so there's some things I'm never going to be able to catch, like with the best spell checking and Grammarly programs. There's just stuff that I will never see because I can't. So I do have a friend who's like working alongside me to kind of like give me some ideas and give me some input and help me out. But, the goal would be to have this second draft done to send to people who are interested in reading it, like the beta readers, maybe early next year. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. So go ahead.
Let me give you some advice now. Let me give you some advice. All right.
Yeah, please.
So first of all, your head's in the right place. You're looking at it exactly right. Don't worry about the editing it yourself and your dyslexia. No one can. No one can edit themselves, at least not well. The only way you can do it is you have to put it away and not look at it for like a month.
Right.
Because your brain deceives you. Your brain shows you what you meant, not what you said.
Right.
So editing yourself is incredibly difficult. So don't knock yourself on that. Pay a professional to do it, and it doesn't cost much. It's like $250, $500. I mean, I realize it's not always that easy to just break off $500, but I mean, it's a hundreds of dollars thing, not a thousands of dollars thing.
Right.
And I know a good person. Do it now. Send it now. It's finished. Stop polishing it. It's been 3 years. Send it to a professional. Let them make their pass on it, and then put together your pitches and start submitting it to publishers. Do it now, because that crap's gonna take forever, and it is super subjective.
Right.
You could have written the new War and Peace, and everyone's got the cliche of "I was turned down 15 times." You know. Harry Potter was rejected, 22 times. And like, that's just the story. It's a numbers game. It's a shotgun offense. And if you've sent it out and you start letting people like look at it and they see it's a serious polished manuscript, someone will bite. And if no one bites, then you self-publish it and be done with it, and keep rolling. But it's finished. If it's been 3 years, if you've already been through one pass, you can only get it so sharp yourself. There's only so much you can do. Hand it off to a professional editor. Like I said, if you don't know one, or if you can't Google one, let me know. I got a good one.
Okay.
And let that be that, and get on with it. None of this next year. That's 6 months from now. What are you talking about? No, do it now.
Okay, Sassy Pants. Well, let me ask you this. So this is obviously something that I'm probably struggling with, is that whole imposter syndrome. Like, every asshole out there wants to write a book. What makes me good enough? So how do you deal with that? Like, what's your advice to people on how to deal with that? Because there's probably a lot of creative people listening to this right now that would love to know how B. Dave Walters handles that imposter syndrome.
Put your hands on your children's ears, kids, because I'm about to say something true. Everybody does want to write a book, and what makes you different? You fucking wrote a book. That's what makes you different. It's like, that's what makes you different.
That's what I try to tell her too. She comes at me a lot of times, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just so critical of this, and I'm not sure if I like this." And I'm like, "Hold up, you're the only human being I know that, like, I personally know, that's written a book. If it's trash, which I assure you it's not, because I have read trash, you did it. You wrote a book. Everything else here is just cake."
That's how I feel about my first book. I honestly, having written my first book is one of the things I'm most proud of, because I just did it.
Yeah.
And honestly, whatever you do, 10 years from now, you're going to go back and read it, and you're going to be like, well, I see how I could do that better. I see what I was getting at there. All right, but this could have been this could have been that, this could have been this. That's growth as an artist. To me, honestly, I never experienced imposter syndrome for two reasons. I know how improbable all of this was. It is just, I so happened got the golden ticket in my chocolate bar. And two, and I know how hard I've worked at this crap, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know how hard I continue to work at this crap. And it's you are to a place now that you have done the important part, and your mind is in the right place. When you were like, I wrote because I had to. I wrote because it was a story I had to tell. And it doesn't matter if anyone ever sees it or if it ever gets published. I would like it to get published, but it doesn't matter. That is the right place to look at it, because you're coming from a place of creation and not from a place of attachment. Problem is, you very much hit a point of diminishing returns. Everyone does, where you are over polishing it to a place of perfection that is innately unattainable. And quite frankly, you lack the objectivity to see, because once you give it to an editor, even if freaking Simon and Schuster is like, yeah, 100%, like, we super want to do this, also edits, you know what I mean? It's going to happen anyway. Like, no, get I'm telling you, get a pro to read it, put together your submission queries, and try and get a literary agent if you can. That is a bizarre and arcane process. A lot of publishers won't take unagented submissions, but hit up the ones that will. I lost you guys' video. Did I lose you guys? Can you still hear me?
We can still see you and hear you.
Oh, great, dope. Okay, no, you're done. You're finished with it. Like I hereby ordain you as worthy.
Well,
you know,
thank you.
blessings upon you and your friend that's helping you. Your friend may be a genius. This is not a knock on your friend's skill. This is you are done. It's time to move to the next stage with it.
All right. Well, I appreciate your permission. I did need it. I needed someone to tell me that it was okay. So thank you,
You're
sir.
worthy.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Hey,
you.
no, and I'm not BSing. Like legit, I've done a thing that very few people have done. That I have published a novel, a graphic novel, had screenplays produced and TV produced, and written nonfiction.
Sorry,
so
I'm wiping the drool off.
I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I know what I'm talking. It's like me and J. Michael Straczynski. You know, like that's it. You know, so. I mean that's all there is to it. And for the people that are struggling with it, what you have achieved, and the important thing is you made it a habit and you did it, because you can't wait till you feel like it. You will never feel like it.
100%.
None of us feel like it.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to do it when it must be done. And that's true of anything that you're trying to accomplish. And the wildest thing is when you get to see something you made come to life, and you, especially when you get to the point that you start seeing interpretations of it, like if you do a graphic novel or if there's film or TV or whatever, concept art, seeing something that was in your mind out in front of you and being like, that's what I saw, is the most crazy and mind-blowing experience. So yeah, man, send it off and start working on the sequel. Whatever energy that you're putting into redrafts of this, start putting into the sequel. Because when you talk to your publisher being like, hey, this one's done and I'm halfway through the next one, that makes you that much more valuable, because as hard as it is to get the first one out, so few people ever get the second one, because they run out of talent and write themselves into corners, and they go like George R.R. Martin, who is very much dead to me.
Oh, come on, man. Come on.
Oh, George
Hold
R.R.
out
Martin
some
is
hope.
dead to me. Dead to me. He will, mark my words, internet. You heard me say it here, August 26, 2020. Not to give away when we tape this. That man will never finish that series. Never finish.
Okay, but
that
let me
series.
ask you this, and then I'm gonna.
I'm 50-50. Let me just say this. I'm 50-50. Book 6 will come out.
Yeah.
Book 7 will never come out, written by him. Maybe ghost written, probably posthumously. He will never write that book because he can't. He's written himself into a corner, and he doesn't remember what he was trying to do in 1997 because he doesn't outline. He doesn't take notes. He just sits there and writes off the dome, and he's lost his own story. That's
I
it.
had
I'm
heard
sorry.
that.
I'm off my
No,
soapbox.
you're fine. I had heard that, though, that he really relied on the fan community to remind him of who the characters were. I think I remember reading that somewhere. All right. Thank you for the pep talk. I don't want to overtake Nate's podcast. I really appreciate
Sorry,
it.
Nate.
No.
But what I will say is that, okay.
I'm entertained. This is all, podcasts are all about entertainment. I'm entertained. Please continue.
I have one.
Are you not entertained?
Oh, that was nice. That was beautiful. I have one last comment about the Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire. Even if he doesn't finish them, haven't you enjoyed what there is?
4 and 5 were awful. I wanted my time back reading those books. The first 3 were brilliant. The first 3 books are as good a literature as anything ever written. And 4 and 5 are garbage. They're so stupid, and it just doesn't make sense. The choice, I mean, spoiler alert, y'all. Y'all already know how the story ends. And people are like, oh, I want to read the book so I can get the real ending. That is his ending. That was contingent on HBO making the show, as he had to tell them the ending.
Right.
Yeah.
That is how it ends. So, I mean, just Daenerys being like, oh, I'm just a girl, don't pay any attention to me, while I repeatedly do stupid things that just completely undo my growth and trajectory as a character in the first 3 books. The fact that it's like, hey, we're going to introduce all these interesting new viewpoint characters just to kill them all. And it's like, you realize that's just making it impossible to forge emotional connection with anybody. And here in this next one, he's like, there's going to be all these new characters. I'm like, bro, the last thing you need is new characters.
Right.
Yeah.
The last thing. No, and it makes me angry
I can tell.
because I believe storytelling, it is a privilege. If you have the privilege of taking people on a journey, it is your moral obligation to finish it to the best of your ability. And you might hit, you might miss. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. Art is subjective. But get it done. I mean, J.K. Rowling did all of 7 of Harry Potter's and has been done for 10 years.
Yeah.
In the time he's been chewing away at this. And again, screw you and your cookbooks, man. And you're like, here's the history of the Targaryens. Nobody cares. Finish the story.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
And I will come for you like this if you don't finish your sweeping epic.
Well,
and you're like, but here's the genealogy of my protagonist. I'll be like, no.
No, it's modern. I don't think anyone would care. But okay. Well, you're a passionate man. I appreciate your opinions.
Yeah, I just started reading the Game of Thrones books for the first time.
He made me laugh because
Don't
he's like,
stop.
Well, I
he's on book
can't now.
2.
I can't stop. I'm on book 2, and now
Turn
I'm
back.
like, I've got to read them all.
Honestly, read 3 because the first 3 are truly brilliant.
Yeah.
And legit, skip 4 and 5 because the only thing that is waiting for you at the end is very angry blue balls.
Well,
The first 3 are just, yeah.
my sweeping epic was always the Stephen King Dark Tower series, and Stephen King not only wrote all of them, but then was like, well, let's just write another, just because. So I got that. I'll always have that. I'll always have the Dark Tower.
You always have the Dark Tower.
Yeah. Well,
Always have the Dark Tower.
I know
Yep.
you've got something in just a few minutes, and so I don't want to keep you. I always
I
like
do.
to, hit the head, get beverages in me before I do more work.
That is all true. In fact, at some point I need to eat something. However, I realize you got NDA'd on a lot of things there, but was there any other questions that we didn't get to touch on?
Yeah. So the other more important question is, when it's released, will you come back and talk to me about it?
Yeah, man.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
That was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. Okay. I mean, I didn't really have anything else. I was hoping that you guys would get into talking about martial arts today.
Oh, yeah.
But see, Rachel, not only is she a talented writer, but she's also she's a martial artist of more than one. More than one.
I
art.
used to be before COVID. I would probably just flail against someone at the moment, but yeah, physical fitness is great. Martial arts are great. Everybody should do something to stay in shape, and I think martial arts is one of the best things you can do for your mind and your body. But that's just biased.
I just wrote a piece for a book. I just wrote a piece last week for a book coming out next year about that very thing, about why everyone should train in the martial arts in the modern era. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a coworker asked me on Zoom, they're like, how are you doing jujitsu now that COVID is happening? I'm like, well, it's probably definitely one that you should not do with COVID because
Probably not.
I can't tell you how many times I've literally had someone just spitting into my nose, not on purpose, but just because their mouth was grinding into my eye or something. So, but one would have to argue when you have to socially distance, do you really need a martial art? And my answer would be yes, you do. You still need them.
You do. It's you don't have to be better than your opponent. You have to be better than yesterday. Also, just remember tap or snap, Nathan. Like when she grabs something and starts bending on it, just give up, man. Just give up. Don't be a hero. Take that arm as a trophy.
I've already learned.
Now he's got
Just
weight.
get out of the way.
He's got weight on me.
Yeah,
I'm not that good
It
yet.
doesn't help that much.
I was about to say that's the thing about jiu-jitsu. It's the weight doesn't matter.
Well,
Weight doesn't matter.
That's if I can just stand on a quick soapbox real quick. That's the reason why I started studying jiu-jitsu is because I had been doing Shotokan karate for about 16 years, and it was great. It was lovely. It was wonderful, and I had progressed. I had gotten a Nidan, second degree black belt. I had done a lot of things, and I kind of noticed that I was like, I learned enough to realize oh, this is great. And this can be very, very effective if I get really, really good technique or I get really, really lucky. But my technique is...
Or a drunk redneck can throw a haymaker and it's a wrap.
Exactly. And I was like, but what's likely to happen in real life is that my technique is okay and I'm not really, really lucky. So what am I actually doing this for? Like, I'm in my mid 30s. I'm getting older. I'm getting tired. I'm losing muscle every second because I have ovaries instead of testicles. Like, what am I actually doing? Am I still studying this because it's a cool, fun thing to do? Or do I actually want to study this for practicality? And I just happened to have a friend who was a jiu-jitsu coach and got in touch with me at the right time when I was starting to kind of like question what I wanted to study. And so women, ladies, don't go take a bullshit self-defense class. Like, go learn jiu-jitsu. Find a good school. You know, if you want to really do self-defense, I think Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the way to go. There are lots of great martial arts and they all have different value. But if you're in it to protect yourself, I think jiu-jitsu is something you should definitely look into. Find a good school with good instructors and, you know, make it a part of your life. Anyway, sorry, that's me. I'm out.
Yes, and I +1 all of that.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, and I won't keep you any longer, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for watching 2D10. You can check out more of my stuff on utilitymuffinlabs.com. You can check out the 2D10 podcast on the same website, or you can go to 2d10.com, but they take you to the same place. Check us out on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Discord, all of which will be linked down below. I'll have new videos out every week. Thank you again for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that, and we'll see you next week.